and good evening to all of you joining with us today. Welcome to AkuruCon 2021. I am Malinda Jayatunga, your event manager, and here with me is Akila Lakmal, your event director. We are joining live from W.S. Silva Museum in Egodawatta, Colombo, Sri Lanka. Before going into today's proceedings, we thought it would be a good idea to take a few minutes and introduce properly what AkuruCon 2021 is all about. The story of AkuruCon started in 2018 when Akuru Collective wanted to organize the first ever Sri Lankan conference on typography. With the overwhelming responses we received for that event, we continued to grow as a community and have conducted both local as well as international type-related events. We know you all have been waiting all these years for the second edition of AkuruCon. So here we are with AkuruCon 2021, organized by Akuru Collective in collaboration with the Institute of Typography in Sri Lanka. This time, we are taking the conversation towards a multilingual Sri Lanka. I would like to invite Akila to tell you more about what AkuruCon 2021 truly means. Akila.
Hello, good evening. So I'm Akila, director of this event, and then I'm going to briefly introduce about what is AkuruCon 2021 is. So as we all know, Sri Lanka is a multi-ethnic country with a diverse culture. As a country, we have a rich typographic landscape. For the majority of script are Sinhala, Tamil, Thana, Arabic, and right now it's become a little bit touch of Chinese as well. So this year, AkuruCon is celebrating the diversity of the rich Sri Lankan typographic context. And we are planning to build a discussion about a multilingual Sri Lanka, its past, present, and the future. So in this entire throughout the August month, we were planning a really interesting lineup with very valuable speakers. So each week we have got an interesting lineup for you. So today, as you all know, we are going to talk about the past of all the scripts, especially on the Sinhala and Tamil script. So title of paving the way towards Sinhala and Tamil typography. So we have here Professor Udaya Kumar from India and Aadarsh Rajan from India, Pathum Egodawatta, Akuru member of Akuru Collective from Sri Lanka, and Dr. Sumanthri from Sri Lanka as well. And the second week, which is 40th of August, we are talking about the current status of multilingual branding and communication in Sri Lanka with Nisairu Basnayaka, Chanuka Vijayasinghe, and Lianvi will be our panel moderator. And the third week of the August, which is 21st of the August, we have the future of the typography in Sri Lanka, and we are going to briefly discuss about what is the past and the present of the Unicodes in Sri Lanka and how it's used and how we are going to change the future of typography. So for that, we invited Dr. S.T. Nandadasa, Dinuka Pereira, Kosal Seniviratna, and Pathum Egodawatta again. And the Janaka Athanayaka will be the moderating the panel. And 28 August, which is our last weekend in this month. So it's all about the workshops, putting everything you learn in the practice actually. So we have got workshop from calligraphy, letterform designing, and multilingual logo designing, and how it affected to communicate your brand and communicate typography in future audiences, and what we can make a future better actually. So for that one, you can get all more details from our event page, which is akurucollective.org/AkuruCon. So I just briefly give you some details about what's coming up for the next entire month. So Mal will be starting on this session. So I'm inviting Mal to giving a brief introduction of what is our panel will be actually. Thank you very much.
Okay, guys, with that, without further ado, let's start today's proceedings. We are kicking off AkuruCon 2021 with Paving the Way for Sinhala and Tamil Typography. Today, we are going to explore the world of Sinhala and Tamil typography through the eyes of type educators, how these letter forms had evolved through history. They will also discuss the anatomy of Sinhala and Tamil letter forms and its distinct features. Let me now introduce you our scholarly panel. We have Dr. Udaya Kumar from India. He's an associate professor and head of Department of Design in Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati, India. We also have invited Aadarsh Rajan. Aadarsh studies and designs Tamil letters. We have also got Pathum Egodawatta. He's a type designer, font engineer, and a researcher. He's also one of the co-founders of Akuru Collective. We have also got Dr. Sumanthri Samarawickrama. Dr. Sumanthri is a senior lecturer in the Department of Integrated Design, University of Moratuwa, and she is also one of the co-founders of Akuru Collective. With that, Pathum, Aadarsh, Dr. Udaya, Dr. Sumanthri, I hand over the room back to you.
Thank you, Mal. Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for joining us today. It's amazing to kick off this event with all of you. Good evening, and thank you, Malindi, for lovely introductions. I'm privileged today to be your sort of host for the evening, and we are a panel together, but I'll be sort of trying to drive the discussion a bit. Today, so we have a wonderful panel today, as Mal introduced. We have a jam-packed session, so we are going to right away dive into this. Our panel today consists of two esteemed academics who are working on areas of Sinhala and Tamil typography, who have been working on this area for a long time. And then we have two type designers, Aadarsh and me, working on Sinhala and Tamil type design and typographic projects. So we are thinking about building a discussion about paving the way, doing the paving the way for more further discussions and further understanding of Sinhala and Tamil typography. This discussion is focused a bit on Sri Lanka, but not necessarily limited to Sri Lanka, because Sri Lanka is a multilingual country and Sinhala and Tamil are our official languages. That's why Akuru Collective has an interest in Sinhala and Tamil typography. So that is the reason why we have these two scripts together in the today's session. But we are happy to hear your thoughts about Tamil and combinations of other scripts as well. Bit of housekeeping. There's a wonderful feature on Zoom, the chat feature. You can use this to post your ideas, comments, or notes about what's being discussed and talked about. So that will inform our panelists as well when we are talking about things. But if you have direct questions to the panelists, please make sure that you post them on the Q&A section that we will look at it later on at the final Q&A session. So we have a jam-packed session. We will do 1 hour of we have 5 questions formulated, and we'll be interrogating these questions together as a panel. And then we will move on to a Q&A session. Yes, I think everything is clear. So let's kick off with the first question. Yes. So why must we look back at history to learn typography? Aadarsh, I'd like you to kick off the discussion today.
I'm just going to start off with something very basic. So the whole point is that we need to first acknowledge that history is just a series of circumstances and not a march towards progress. And this is often, it is often assumed that what was then was just savagery and what was now is modernity, and everything about modernity is great. And this is best exemplified by the painting by John Gast called American Progress. And it's an allegorical representation of the modernization of the West, where the central figure, Destiny, represents, well, white colonial settlers who are forcibly evacuating natives from their land and assume themselves to be harbingers of modernity. And but we now know from the multiple conversations, especially over the last 2 years, that this is obviously a false notion of history. And we must also understand that history is not necessarily a force for modernization. It's actually also it also constrains, and we can see this in the evolution of the book with respect to the Tamil script. As until 1578, all we had was palm leaf manuscripts, and we had certain textual practices that governed the governed palm leaf inscriptions and how they were preserved and how they were used. They were not really meant to be permanent. They were meant to be fairly ephemeral, and they were meant to be renewed once once the inscriptions faded away. However, with the book, this changed, and the book, as you can see, like the palm leaf manuscript is 42 centimeters wide, whereas the book is barely 1/4 of that. And you had a script that had long words that had to be fit into the space of a book. Obviously with the book, you get an efflorescence of typographic hierarchy for the first time in this context. And you have, as you can see on the cover page, you have an image, you have ornaments, you have a drop capital there, which is of course completely alien to Tamil text. Fast forward to the mid 20th century, and you have even narrower columns. Of course, these columns are so narrow because um, there was a scarcity of paper during this time, but there was also a need to disseminate more information, whether for nationalism or for entertainment. And the really tiny margins are not my crop exactly. They represent the economics of the situation then. And now you have the web, which is an even tinier space, and you just have one single column of text. And if you just observe the number of characters per line in the different forms of the book, so to speak. In palm leaves, you had 78 characters per line, whereas in books you had 20, eventually 16 because of the narrower columns. And now, even though you have 24, one would assume that with the web, everything is modern and everything is changed and everything is hunky-dory, but that is certainly not the case. Hyphenation is still an issue in Tamil. That's primarily because Tamil does not have an hyphenation dictionary. So as you can see here, the wells and reservoirs of space in Tamil text prohibit fine typography. And so Tamil is what it is, not despite the medium, but because of the medium and its inabilities to be supposedly as beautiful as it once was, is owes to the inefficiency of the medium itself and its inability to to measure up to the contours of the script itself. But I don't want to make it seem like all is doom and gloom and history is just like a march towards decadence. You do have Easter eggs in history, which we probably can use to our advantage, especially with the dawn of variable font technology. As you can see, the varying lengths of the ter in the manuscript and in the printed page, the first printed book. I don't think this was used later on, but the varying lengths of the ter helps justify the text. So this is an extremely native solution from within the script. And this is a simulation of that using a variable font that I just designed with Ek type called Anek. And it doesn't do this. This is just a simulation. But imagine if like the text on top is unjustified, but imagine if you could just modulate those key characters to help justify the text.